Hello, amazing listeners. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Transform Yourself, the podcast that is about empowering you to shed stubborn pounds and embrace your best self. We are your hosts, Kacy and Tyler. We use the 4 M's of fitness, mind shift, meal shift, micro habits, and muscle building to create an attainable and sustainable approach to weight loss. We've lost a collective 130 pounds. We've kept it off for 3 years. And we are here to give you practical tips and help you make positive changes in your life. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about macros. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the word macros, today's episode is going to change that. We're making the word macros easy. No complicated science, no food fears, just simple, actionable steps to help you hit your fat loss goals without stress. And by the end of this episode, you're not just going to understand macros, you're also going to be able to calculate your calorie deficit. Make sure that you're hitting the correct protein goal, be able to calculate that. Understand why macros matter. We're going to do a deep dive into what macros are. So let's give you a quick overview. Macros, there are 3 of them. Fats, carbs, and protein. And all of the food that you eat is made up of those 3 macros. So fats, carbs, and protein, they make up all of the food that you consume and drinks that you can consume. Some people consider alcohol another macro.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring that up because that's kind of like the 4th macro.
It is, but...
So, how do you have people track? Well, let's get to that. I'm
we'll
curious,
get to that
how would you track that? But yeah,
a lot of people track that differently. So, okay. So all food is comprised of one of the 3 macros or all 3 macros. So protein, carbs, and fats. And protein is basically 4 calories per gram. Fats are 9 calories per gram, and carbs are 4 calories per gram. And so the calories that you are consuming is made up of exactly that, the macros. The biggest thing we need to know is that in order to lose fat, you must be in a calorie deficit. But that doesn't mean starving yourself. We're going to keep that really simple. So before I get into doing a dive into protein, carbs, and fats, I want to first talk about overall, the total of your macros, the total calories of macros is and should be, if you're in a fat loss phase, your calorie deficit. So let's start there with how would you calculate your calorie deficit if you didn't have access to the caloriedeficitqueen.com. I do have a free calculator there, by the way, on the Getting Started page if you do have access to it. But if you didn't, how would you calculate your calorie deficit? There is a very simplistic way to calculate that. You could basically take your goal weight, whatever your goal weight is. Let's just say it's 147 pounds is your goal weight. And you multiply your goal weight by 11 and then again by 12. So if your goal weight was 147 pounds, you multiply that by 11, you get 1617. So 1,617 calories. If you multiply 147 by 12, you get 1,764 calories. So basically you're eating between 1,600 and 1,700 calories as your calorie deficit sweet spot range. It's going to give you a range to eat in. Did you have a question, Tyler?
No, I was confused at first. I didn't realize that you're throwing out a range. I guess I didn't hear that part. Okay, good. Carry on.
So you can quickly, just figure out your calorie deficit that way. Now, I will tell you that does not take into account your age, your height, your current weight,
your muscle,
your activity level. Yeah. It does not take into account any of that. The calorie deficit calculator on my website does take those numbers into account. So it's going to give you a more accurate, calorie deficit range. However, if you want to do some math, you can just, you're listening to me in your car. You can do that math and get an idea of where your calorie deficit is. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get straight into the first macro we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about protein. Before we talk about protein, let me tell you real quick that besides calculating your calorie deficit, I would also have my clients calculate their protein goal. And to calculate your protein goal, you would again take your goal weight. Again, I'm just going to take the number 147 as your goal weight, multiply it by 0.7 for the low end, and by 1 for the high end. So 147, if that's your goal weight, the low end is 103 grams of protein per day. High end, 147 times 1, 147 grams of protein per day. So that person would eat between 103 grams and 147 grams of protein per day. This just kind of gives you a range so that you don't have to try to hit such an exact number every day. And if you have a hard time getting in protein, well, then start at your low end and work your way up to your high end. I consider protein the superhero macro, especially for you ladies listening. Any lady that's listening that is perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, protein will be your superhero macro. It's kind of like the Beyonce of macros.
Now, why do you say it's the superhero? Because your muscles are made of it?
It is.
That seems the most logical answer.
Because it's so important for women over 40.
It's important for everybody.
It is important for everybody.
But it's the one you can't do without.
I agree. It is important for everybody. But I will tell you that when women over 40 prioritize protein, boy, do we start seeing a difference in body composition. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Is that it is a superhero macro for us women over 40. It's going to preserve muscle if you're trying to lose fat. It's going to keep you full so that you're not raiding the pantry 20 minutes after dinner. It's going to burn more calories during digestion than carbs or fats. Yes, you're going to burn more calories just by eating protein or more protein. Mm. It's essential for menopausal women because it helps maintain muscle mass and it supports bone health. These are two things that start to decline as we age. And if you're not eating enough protein, you're going to struggle with fat loss, period. And I'm not saying you have to eat plain chicken breast or boiled chicken breast all day long. That's not what I'm saying. There are so many delicious ways to hit your protein goal. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lean meats, eggs, protein powder. There are so many ways to get in protein. Go check out my Instagram page, The Calorie Deficit Queen. I give you lots of ways, even protein brownies. I'm sure I have a recipe on my page.
Yeah, I can promise you do. In fact, I would bet $100.
Yeah. Moral of the story, eat protein first at every meal and think about as you make each meal for yourself throughout the day, think about protein first. What is my protein?
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So why is it that obviously you're in this world more than I am and in tune to women more than I am, but why do women seem to struggle with getting protein in? What is it? Is it just...
I would say that women over 40 specifically have trouble getting in protein, but that's also because we were never told. We didn't grow up in an era where protein was important.
Is it like a social construct, like men eat protein, women eat carbs?
We grew up in an era where protein was not, instead of being strong, we grew up in an era of being skinny.
Okay.
Over strong. But now there's a new movement of women being strong over skinny. And I appreciate and love that.
Well, and you shouldn't see, and that's a misnomer, even that, because it's strong over scrawny.
I mean,
really, because that's what, like, if you spend all day doing cardio and doing Pilates and only doing that, and then you're wasting away. Like, go put some freaking muscle on, man. Like,
I think it's the era we grew up in.
Okay.
Because if you listen to Dr. Mary Claire, she talks about Haver. Mm-hmm. The menopause basically expert right now. She talks about the idea that, she didn't know until, over the last decade for
It's
herself
crazy.
that she should be eating higher protein.
Well, and I guess like if you look at examples of fit women, like you see like bodybuilder types, and like you think like, oh, protein's gonna make me look like that, and God, I wish that was the case. For like if you could just eat more protein and lift weights and look like a bodybuilder,
right?
Like do women not think like every man would be walk around like 235 ripped? Like of course we would. It's way harder than that. Like
yeah,
like the whole I don't want to get bulky. Like you're not going to get bulky, Becky.
This is true. This is true. Let's move to carbs. So first things first about carbs. I want you to stop fear-mongering carbs. It is literally, I feel like the most misunderstood macro is carbs. Mm-hmm. It's been...
I really feel like all of them are.
It's been... I don't know. I mean, it's been public enemy number one.
Yeah, you're right. I'll give you that.
Thank you, keto. Let's set the record straight.
Dr. Atkins in 1997.
Right? Oh, gosh. Carbs are not the enemy. Carbs do not magically make you fat. Carbs are your body's main source of energy. Let's dig in just a little bit about what you need to know about carbs. There are two different types of carbs. There's simple and complex carbs. Simple carbs is basically, it's sugar. It's the white refined sugar. It's fruit juice, it's white bread, it's all of those foods that might give you a fast energy spike, but it's, gonna spike your glucose as well, your blood sugar, which then will in turn give you a little crash. And then if you'd like to go listen to our episode all about insulin resistance, and then we'll talk more about that there. And then besides simple carbs, there's complex carbs, and these are carbs that digest slower. They keep you fuller longer. So think whole grains, veggies, beans. Those are your complex carbs. So you want to prioritize complex carbs over simple carbs. The complex carbs are not going to give you quite the glucose spike that the simple carbs would.
Yeah, but basically it's, if you're going to eat carbs, eating it closer to its most natural state, I guess, would be how you would avoid simple sugar if you were trying to.
Fruits and vegetables, people.
Well, but
don't be afraid of a banana because it's...
But banana, if you eat so the difference between eating an apple and drinking apple juice is an apple, you're eating it also with fiber, which will slow everything down.
Correct.
Versus apple juice is to your liver, it's basically a soda. It's the same. It can't tell the difference. It's sugar. That's all it sees.
Let's talk about... Well, let's get into what you said, because you talked about the idea that apple has fiber with it. Yes, it does. So let's talk about the idea behind total carbs versus net carbs, because just FYI, food labels are allowed to publish the net carbs on the back of the package with the calories calculated from net carbs instead of total carbs. So what do I mean net carbs? So net carbs are equal to the total carbs minus fiber and sugar alcohols. So many times on, for example, carb counter tortillas, I eat them. I eat the carb counter tortillas. Now, I eat them because they are higher in fiber. I like it that they're higher in fiber. On the back of the package, it says they're 60 calories each. Are they actually 60 calories each, or are they more than that? If you look at the total carbs, you will notice, if you do the math, a carb is 4 calories per gram, and protein is 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. You do the math, that tortilla is actually going to be closer to 90 to 100 calories per tortilla, depending on the brand that you get. There are several like that. There's food labels can publish calories based on the math with net carbs. It's not a terrible thing. I still choose products that aren't necessarily correct in calories because they're calculated with net carbs instead of total carbs, but I choose those because they have a higher fiber content, and I'm looking for a higher fiber carb than a lower fiber carb. I just want you to know this because I think it's super important to be well informed about food labels and your macros. Moving on to the next macro, fat. I think the 90s ruined this macro for us. Raise your hand if you were personally victimized by the low-fat diet trend of the 90s.
Like Snackwells?
My hand is up. Everything was fat-free, but we were all still struggling with our weight. Like everyone.
Do you remember when they tried pushing synthetic fat? I think it was synthetic. It was called Olean.
Yes, I do remember that. It was in chips.
Yeah.
But it would make people have diarrhea, right?
Yeah, basically, like they had a tiny little label on the back that said, if you eat too much, you'll have, and I can't remember how they phrased it, but they phrased it in a way.
I'm pretty sure we bought some of that. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure my mother bought it.
Okay. Yeah, but
I'm sure your mother bought it.
I don't remember.
I mean,
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. No, I remember the green Snackwell boxes, but I don't remember the chips. Yeah.
I mean, you remember it happening.
Yes, I do. And it was very short-lived.
It was. This is true. Here's the reality. Fats are not bad. They are essential. They help your hormones function properly. We need that, ladies, right?
And they're the tastiest of the macros.
I mean, they keep you full and satisfied. They help vitamin absorption of A, D, E, and K, and those are very important for us, ladies. Vitamin D, specifically during menopause. What's the difference between good and bad fats? Well, there's healthy fats. There's unhealthy fats. Let's talk a little bit. I'm not going to get deep into the science of it, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of fats. There's saturated fats, unsaturated fats, and then there's polyunsaturated fats. Then there's trans fats also. I mean, I know.
I forgot about the war, because there was like a 2-year period where that was the only story in nutrition.
Right, the trans fat, the fight against trans fats.
I don't even know what a trans fat is.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you.
Is it wearing a blue rig? Never mind. I'll cut that out.
Please cut that out.
That's a good joke, though.
Stop. Okay. All right. So saturated fats are basically fats that are solid at room temperature. So like butter, right? Leave a stick of butter out. It's still going to be solid at room temperature. That is a saturated fat. Cheese is a saturated fat. Coconut oil is a saturated fat. Unsaturated fats, those are liquid at room temperature.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Like, that's how you could tell the difference.
Yeah. It's just kind of an easy way. Olive oil, avocado oil, those are unsaturated fats.
Beef tallow. They'd be saturated.
Yes. And then you have your trans fats. Now, here's the deal. Trans fats are created through a chemical process called hydrogenation, and it really makes me want to get my chemistry teacher lab coat back on and start teaching about that. But you don't need to know a lot about it. It's just what you do need to know is hydrogenation is basically where you add a hydrogen molecule to an unsaturated compound, and then it makes it saturated. So it's a chemical process to make a fat that we need for processed foods like cookies, crackers, margarine. Those are all trans fats. So yes, I do feel like it's best to not completely eliminate trans fats. However, in moderation, small amounts, would I have trans fats. So I wouldn't suggest you having a diet full of trans fats. I would definitely suggest a diet low in trans fats. Now, I do want to mention seed oils on this podcast. We're going to talk just for a second about seed oils. Social media, because that kind of fits into the fat category. Mm-hmm. Social media has made seed oil the devil But unless you're drinking like a gallon of canola oil a day, you're going to be fine. Seed oils come from seeds, while non-seed oils come from fruits, nuts, other plants. Seed oils are like canola oil, cottonseed oil, grapeseed oil, safflower, soybean oil. Non-seed oils, that's avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil. Those are the 3 oils that you probably already use, is the avocado oil, the coconut oil, and the olive oil in your household. So you probably already use non-seed oils unless you're using canola oil. Now, here's the thing. Seed oils are usually used in commercially fried foods or ultra processed foods. And by the way, the reason seed oils get a bad rap in the first place is because they have high omega-6 fatty acid. That's why. And the omega-6 is the bad fatty acid and could lead to inflammation, chronic diseases, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm trying to say is that those seed oils that I listed, those are used in commercially fried foods. They're used in ultra-processed foods. They're used in foods that are already high in sugar, sodium, refined flour, lacking fiber, lacking nutrients. So it's likely because of the food themselves. It's not the oil that they can. It's guilt by association.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I think that's a really important distinction to make, because you can. I mean, there's so much debate. Are they good or bad, or
right.
are they bad, or is it the same? I would just argue, if you walk around with 40 extra pounds and you're trying to like justify like, oh, I'm gonna eat fried chicken, but it's gonna be fried in beef tallow, that's way healthier. Like, you're not doing yourself any favors,
right?
You know, I feel like like that's like a level 401 topic for like when you've got everything else in order. But if you're trying to lose weight, like you need to cut all of it out.
Right.
It's all too much.
Yeah. So the oil itself may not be the culprit. It might be the idea that you're eating ultra processed foods or fried foods. That might be the culprit of why you're having a hard time with fat loss. So it's something I wanted to make sure we addressed while we talk about fat. All right. So let's wrap this up. I first want you to know I don't want you to overcomplicate macros. And I know there's some of y'all out there like, well, what percentage of carbs and what percentage of fats and what percentage of protein should I eat? And tell me how to calculate my exact macros so I can. No, don't do it. I tell women all the time, let's not play Tetris with our macros. Let's not try to fit all the little pieces together every single day. Oh, but I don't want to do that. That sounds complicated to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a pain. Well, it is. It's a pain in the ass.
Huge pain in the ass. Yeah, I don't want to do it. So if I don't want to do it and it sounds unsustainable to me, it's probably unsustainable to many of you. So let's not stress ourselves out. Yes, macros matter, but they shouldn't stress you out. To focus on fat loss, all you need to do is stay in your calorie deficit range. I told you how to calculate that earlier, or go to the caloriedeficitqueen.com getting started tab. And then focus on your protein goal. That's it. Calorie deficit, protein goal. So if you can imagine that you've hit your calorie deficit very accurately, you're eating fewer calories than you're expending, and you hit your protein goal, you've calculated your protein goal, you've hit your protein goal, then that only leaves a window of opportunity for fats and carbs. So at the end of the day, it won't matter to over obsess over every gram of fat and carbs.
Yeah.
But it will matter if you're in a calorie deficit and you hit your protein goal. That will matter.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it's like those examples of like filling a jar. It's like the protein is like the big rocks.
Yes.
Just make sure you get all of the big rocks into the jar, and then you just have to pour whatever else in. And as long as you stay
in your deficit,
then it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Like virtually no one who's listening to this podcast is doing any kind of like serious, like rigorous sporting activity, or they're dieting for a bodybuilding competition.
The dieting Olympics.
Yeah, you're not doing any of that kind of stuff. So if you're just an average normal person, it doesn't freaking matter. You're overcomplicating it because the industry has told you that, and MyFitnessPal wants to sell you a membership. That's really what it is.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I use the free version of any of the calorie tracking apps I use, because I don't care where my fats and carbs are. I care where my protein is and where my calorie range is. I personally, the ones of you who have been listening to my podcast and listen to it every week, y'all know I have been in a calorie deficit this year. I've personally been on my own fat loss goal journey. I have not counted and tracked all my macros.
You haven't counted a single carb?
I mean, I haven't. I've looked at my calorie deficit total, and I've looked at my protein goal, and I'm making sure I'm hitting those numbers, and I'm successful. And y'all, I can say the same about all of my current clients, my one-on-one clients. When we see them consistently hit those goals, we see results. And that's without digging into the weeds of the carbs and the fats. I still think it's important to choose your carbs wisely. Choose carbs that have fiber. I think it's important to not completely go into a fat-free diet. It is healthy to have fats for your hormones and vitamin regulation, or vitamin absorption, so to speak. But other than that, that's what you need to know about carbs and fats. So I hope we made macros easy. If you're looking for low-calorie recipes, many that are high protein, then go check out thecaloriedeficitqueen.com. I have an ultimate cookbook. I have a cookbook called 3-Step Meal Prep, many breakfasts, lunches, dinners, a brunch book that I'm going to be promoting again soon because Easter's coming. So lots of choices on the website there. And then also there's a coaching tab. If you are looking for just a little bit of group coaching, go check out the coaching tab. I have group coaching that is ongoing. So again, thecaloriedeficitqueen.com. If you're looking for one-on-one coaching, I also have that on the coaching tab. Go check it out. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Transform Yourself. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share the love. And until next time, keep shining, keep smiling, and keep transforming yourself.
Adios.